Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to, I guess, a bonus edition of How Did This Get Booked? Is that what we're calling it?
If we're good enough, maybe it's another episode?
I don't know. This is a very loose format. This is me, Jake Manning, a veteran of the professional wrestling business for over a decade. I've held every single job except selling popcorn. And, of course, I'm joined solely in a monogamous relationship right now, for the moment in this time, by my co-host, Zane Riley. Zane, how are you doing today?
Intoxicated, Jake. How are you?
Well, good. Now I'm glad that I'm shoveling more beer down your throat.
Yes, that's why I asked for them before we had this conversation.
And then, put a live microphone in front of you.
Exactly. And the only person that has to be a part of this microphone, I don't have to share it with anybody. Basically, you've got Andrew Dice Clay or Sam Kinison in his prime. Minus the fact I don't scream a lot. I'm old, my vocals are fucked up, as is. So
exactly. You've already got the polyps in your throat and the rear end.
Yeah. I can barely walk, kind of like Sam Kinison. I have a really sweet-ass sleeveless leather vest, like Andrew Dice Clay. That's about all I got.
Yeah, so you're holding nothing back. But anyways, exactly. What makes this kind of a special episode, like Zane said, like I kind of vaguely mentioned, is that we're just kind of doing this ourselves. We kind of decided to do some bonus episodes, some things that are probably kind of timely that we want to talk about right away.
And when we call them bonus episodes, we don't want you to think that maybe we've run out of comedians to get on this show.
Or run out of shows to discuss.
And we're having a hard time, because that's not the case.
No.
Wink.
No, that's most certainly not the case. It's just we feel like there's certain topics we want to talk about and explore that are very timely. Like we were discussing off mic before we jumped on, but we'll talk about it on mic
now.
Is where we should have done an episode on the final deletion.
And we fucked that.
Yeah, we completely fucked up and completely ruined that. We should have saw it, recorded a podcast immediately, and got it out as quick as possible.
But we didn't do that.
We did not do that.
But what did we see and threw out a very prompt podcast, Jake?
That's right, because we're out of succession, and we're talking about and we're going to discuss. This was the XFL, the 30 for 30. And another reason why this is a bonus, we're going to release it on an off week, because I was like, hey, maybe in 2 weeks people will forget that they ever watched that documentary. Luckily, it's burned in my head, and I saw it a week ago when it premiered, but it's burned in my head, and I only had to do a little bit of research. You just recently saw it.
I watched it a couple hours ago.
Okay.
And the worst part of it was I was so enthralled most of the time, I forgot to take notes. I've got notes, and I remember what I saw because I watched it very recently. But it's a very enthralling documentary.
You felt it was enthralling?
Yes.
Okay, well, yes. I'm a bit of a documentary snob.
Oh, pardon me.
Well, when you produce one or two in your time, I think you've
Fuck you. But also, I'm going to take into consideration that you've seen almost, if not every episode of ESPN's 30 for 30.
Yes, I have a very high benchmark of what I see on for 30 for 30.
See, I've only seen the Ice Cube directed one on the Oakland Raiders.
Okay.
And I have seen the Christian Laettner one, which if any wrestler is listening to this right now and has not watched the Christian Laettner 30 for 30, you are not an effective wrestling heel. But those are the only two I've seen, and those are the only ones that I can actually compare this one to. So.
Oh, see, I watch all of them. I rewatch them. I dissect them. I just watched the Magic Johnson announcement one on 30 for 30, and I saw it. I go, ooh, yeah, this was not as good on the second viewing.
Oh, yeah?
I really liked it because there was a lot of the earlier ones. I saw when I was heavily intoxicated. That was a very heavy drinking days of Jake Banning, where his whole...
And then a week later, you were not?
Well, like I said, I think I have some digestive issues.
Also on the pre-tape of this, let's talking about Man Scout's bumhole.
Yeah, I had a doctor's appointment, okay? and tomorrow I'm filing my taxes, so I'm doing very adult shit this week.
He's getting all sorts of fuck this week.
But
here we go. All right, guys, you let us know what you think this is.
But it has been a very productive week for me. But speaking of people who are productive, Dick Ebersol.
Man,
that is a great segue into this.
I'll take it.
Dick Ebersol. Me being someone who graduated with a broadcasting degree from Western Illinois University, and I've always looked at somebody like Dick Ebersol as like kind of like a pioneer, a guy that's really done a lot of things, in the world of broadcasting. He had a hand in Saturday Night Live and all the sports on NBC. Like, they could have done just the 30 for 30 on him and the things that he's done. And after watching the XFL one, I kind of wish that's what they did. Because all the stuff that he was discussing and just the programming aspect of it and everything they were doing it on NBC's end of this XFL thing was far more enthralling than anything else. Like, anytime they threw it to, like, Vince McMahon, I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up.
Well, see, like, my whole, from the entire, like, overview of it all, was that they talk about, like, most in point, the very first game, where, like, the WWE side's like, this is fantastic, they're putting it over huge, and, like, all this cool shit's happening, and that's where you first meet the person this whole thing will be based around is He Hate Me. You first meet him, and everything's fucking kick-ass, and then they, like, right past that, talk about NBC's side, where they're like, this was the fucking shit, it was terrible. So, like, you have so many emotions going to this one game of all of these weeks. It really, like, it was very hard to focus on. It, like, pulled me both ways. Because I'm like, yeah, this is badass. Maybe it's bad. I don't know. But this looks badass from this point of view. But that was the whole thing. You're like, fuck you.
That was the point they were trying to make with the documentary. That they felt like everything was all hype. And then there was no follow-through. But, like, one of the things I discuss in here that blows my mind, like when I say, like, anytime the WWE people were talking about, like, oh, fuck you, Vince. Like, but, like...
That's crazy, because the entire time I'm thinking, fuck Bob Costas.
Well...
but I guess both sides agree with that, right? I don't know what you think about Bob Costas. A little bit,
but gosh, some of those smarky comments, though, like, as a comedian, I can appreciate the writing on it. Like,
could you imagine what, like, the world's landscape would have been if Vince McMahon and Bob Costas got into a fist fight that night?
Oh yeah, well, like I don't want to get too far to that because I do have a little bit of a segment.
We'll get there.
We'll get there because like I got a lot of Bob Costas stuff.
Oh, holy shit! Because all of my Bob Costas stuff just says "fuck Bob Costas" at least 10 times in this my notes. And like basically every time they gave him an interview, I'm like, "Fuck you, Bob Costas."
Well, I mean. When you say notes about fuck, I just like when are like Dick Ebersol and Vince McMahon gonna fuck? That was my big question.
We'll talk about it later, but the go home, it's like when the pets came back in the very first Homeward Bound movie. I was just very teary eyed, and Vince is about to just. He's crying. Never mind. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay, we'll get there. But like, there's a couple of things that we want to discuss. Is basically this all.
I'm crying right now. Let's just. Will you move on?
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, basically, the XFL, as I pointed out, was a 50-50 venture between NBC, who lost the rights to NFL football to Fox, and Vince McMahon, who wanted to get into the business of professional football, which. Never was properly explained in the documentary because, like, it just is one of those things like, hey, we lost... Ebersol's like, hey, we lost football. We were trying to figure out what we could do, maybe start another league. But then I find out my best friend down the road was starting his own. But they never explain why.
The two...
But, yeah, why was Vince interested in starting professional football? Because 2001, like... Where Vince was at, like, he was kind of kicking ass. This is the Attitude Era. Things are just coming up roses. WCW is on life support at this time. Like, he is on top of the world. And seems like, to me, the last thing that he would want to do would start...
An extra venture.
Yeah, an extra venture.
Put money somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. When he is very close to completely crushing his competition. When you have, like, the death hold on this... big thorn in your side and you're ready to choke them out. You don't then decide like, hey, I'm going to go do something else.
By the way, I'm going to finger my butt.
Yeah, or lack thereof. But in doing a little bit of research, I figured out why he even got interested in football is because he was offered to he was approached to own the Toronto Argonauts, which is a Canadian football team. He was approached about that. But being Vince McMahon, as opposed to just going, hey,
I'm good.
or hey, I'm good, or hey, like, that's a very interesting proposal. Let me think about it. And it was discussed. He wanted to move the team south. So he wanted to take a Canadian football team and put it in the U.S.
Yep.
Like a supreme...
Well, I mean, he's seen, like, the Blue Jays and the Expos and how kick-ass they were doing it in the MLB. Like, you know what would be real crazy if I took this team from Canada out of the Canadian Football League and brought them to America.
Yeah.
Ooh, where would he have put it in
Detroit.
America? Oh, boo.
The Detroit Argonauts.
No, I want, like, the Texas Argonauts.
Maybe
some bullshit, like, way southern town.
Or he would have put it in Connecticut.
The Tampa Argonauts.
Oh, yeah, that would have been real good. So, but then these Canadian football teams that are, like, done on shoestring budgets have to fly to Tampa. And, like,
and the reverse, where, like, the more money would be spent on the transportation of the situation than any aspect of the rest of the game combined.
Yeah. But see, that proposal got Vince to thinking, well, maybe I can buy the Canadian Football League. That was discussed. Like, that's how it started, was like, maybe I can buy the Canadian Football League.
Wait a minute. So, are you trying to tell me that he could have had that part in the Canadian Football League, but then he was like, no, fuck Bret Hart. I'll just make my own league out of the Canadian Football League, bring it to America, and Bret Hart can't have shit because Bret screwed Bret.
Possibly.
Oh, fuck me. Already.
All the pieces are coming together, ladies and gentlemen.
Jake, I've been drinking for the last 2 hours. I can't have this kind of thing. You know I love Bret Hart. I can't have this on my plate right now. Or whatever the Canadians call plates.
Plates. That's what they call
them. I don't buy it.
I don't buy it.
Speaking of, Jesse Ventura's there.
Exactly. Made only 2 appearances on this documentary. Like,
I thought he made a lot more until I realized that one guy was just a camera guy.
Yeah.
That talks about the Bubba Cam and shit. Mm-hmm. I, like, in quick glances, I thought that was also Jesse the Body Ventura. Totally not.
Was that, like... So this is when you started drinking, correct?
Well, I watched it on the way here in my car while I drove.
But
yeah, no, he's definitely not there. But the one cool thing about him is when you do first see him, he's in front of the coolest neon WWF logo of all time. I want to know where that logo's at in just neon bar lights, because that was kick ass.
But if you notice, it was just a screen that they switched out because everybody was in front of that, and they would make
or their NFL. Particular like division of what this is about, like
NBC.
Jerry Jones or
it was in front of an NFL.
Yeah.
So like, I thought that was a cool. To me, I think that was the coolest thing of this documentary was the set dressings for those interviews.
Yeah, they definitely were.
And the guy who was basically directed this and put this together was Charlie Ebersol,
his son.
Is Dick's son. So
he was one of Dick's balls. There was a real creepy smile and some eye contact, and Jake just gave me this side and head shake no.
Was this where I was supposed to laugh? Was I supposed to laugh right now?
Oh, no, I didn't want you to laugh. If you would have laughed, it would have killed the joke.
Okay.
Since we don't have a comedian, I'm throwing in my comedian chops.
You're trying.
Bill Burr's in Charlotte tonight, and I'm trying to get my solid 4 in for him.
Good luck.
Yeah. Here, it's sold out. I can't even buy a ticket.
I don't even know if I can sneak in.
No, you can't. You cannot. I've already called. I already called and said, hey, this is Jake Manning. Can I get in? And they said no.
Oh, thanks. I'm already blackballed.
Good.
Haven't even got it off the ground.
Welcome.
All right. But speaking of black balls, XFL. Oh!
He hate me?
No.
No, okay, I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, because the balls were black.
The balls were black and slippery, apparently.
No, very.
Yeah. Just take a little sandpaper to it. It'd be all right.
Yeah, it'd be all right.
But,
have your wife throw your balls in the shower and you send them off real fast.
But I feel like like I said, the major point before we got on this big long tangent that morphed into this mutant
ball sanding thing.
Yeah, ball sanding thing. But I want to get back to the Vince thing about like just the audacity of him starting this league. But the thing that I thought that I'm blown away by, which I might say fuck Vince, but like the thing that I applauded him for, I think the most, and that I learned out of this documentary, is the fact that he had so much fucking balls to think that he was going to just be like, hey, we're going to finalize these football rosters in December and we're going to play professional football in February.
The full-on size of these balls.
Humongous.
How? And like everybody on his team was pretty much on board, and obviously, regardless of how they said it, most of the NBC guys were on board. Like, they still went through with it. It still fucking happened.
Yeah.
The amount of brazen, just machismo is just... It blows my goddamn mind.
The just make it happen mentality.
There should
Unbelievable.
be posters of kittens hanging on branches that has some quote from Vince McMahon and his huge balls around it. Because this is fucking nuts.
Make it fucking happen, kitten.
Kitten. Hang in there, you cocksucker. Vince McMahon.
I said I want it tinier and shinier. Vince McMahon. Kitten.
Kitten. A real silver kitten. It's ridiculous, the amount of like... And it was, as we come to later on, but overall we know... It was almost the very end. There was going to be a second season before he admitted, like, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe I fucked up. And he still wasn't 100% on board with him fucking up.
No.
The audacity.
You've got to, in this country, you have to applaud that 1,000%.
I wish I would have written him in. As president. Like, I voted for Bernie, and that didn't happen, and I voted for Hillary, and we got what we got, but fuck, had I seen this before then, I'd have just written in Vince McMahon. Both ends, fuck it.
Yeah, because, like, Vince has some very Trump qualities to him, especially, and they were very glaring in this documentary, but I'll tell you what, there's a little bit of Vince that I feel like there's some compassion there.
Oh, yeah.
Like I feel like he is very proud that he employs the people that he does.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And there is a sense of like, you should feel grateful to work for my company. But then there's also a sense too that he's like, I'm doing a good thing and I'm doing something spectacular as opposed to I'm spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he
kind of like when you watch the Super Bowl and you saw George and Barbara Bush getting wheeled out and you forget about all the bullshit they did. As, you know, shitty Republicans. You're just like, oh, they're still alive. That's kick-ass. Good for them. Oh, they did the coin toss. That same kind of, like, good feeling.
Yeah, like, fuck you, this is Houston. I'm doing the fucking coin flip. I used to be fucking the president and the director of the CIA.
Whoop, whoop, motherfuckers.
Yeah. Skull and Bones, motherfucker.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good movie. I digress. That's another episode, I guess.
But... You know, one of the things that, you know, Ebersol did, you know, and they showed kind of how they revolutionized the way sports is filmed. You know, it's a very unique way with the Skycam.
And they show off every bit of the aspects that the NFL used today.
Yeah, it wasn't the first time that some of these things were employed, but it was definitely the time that they were, like, excessively used.
Yeah.
To the extent that it was. Because if you look at the old footage, it's a lot of, like, overhead Skycam stuff, a lot of ground stuff. It's very much... in your face, on the sidelines.
Mics on players.
Yeah. Which is all stuff that the NFL, you know, uses today. Maybe not to the excess that the XFL did, but definitely much more since then. So it gave it a good blueprint. But something I do want to get to a story that was offside, but a little piece of research since we're talking about the XFL. As you know, I did a podcast called Stranger in the Southern
You did?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was I ever on it?
A couple of times.
Oh, fuck
but
me.
I interviewed Humpy Wheeler, who is a legendary promoter of NASCAR here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And he was approached by Ebersol and Vince McMahon about XFL. I think they were probably looking for cities. I'm sure when they were looking for cities, they were looking for somebody to manage a team or promote. And Humpy, of course, would have had all the facilities available to him.
Could have got them stadiums to play in. Because that seemed to be like a big thing. They never had those really, except for like Vegas.
Yeah, so I feel like, you know, Humpy would have been the guy. And of course, Charlotte being a smaller market, they could have pulled some... They felt like they could have wrapped their arms around promotion-wise. And in that meeting, Humpy told me on the podcast that I did with him that he said, you know, hey, this XFL thing, it's, this is good and all, but there's two things you need to do if you really want to put it over the top.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, now, I recommend that you get a drink right now because...
Got one. What's up, Hump?
Because by the time you get to the second one, you're probably going to, think I'm a crazy person.
Go on.
He said his first suggestion was to Ebersol and Vince McMahon was that they should make a rule that at all moments in time, a team should have at least one woman on the field.
What?
And that's not even the suggestion you should get a drink for.
Wait a minute! You mean that's the acceptable reason?
Yeah.
There's a reason more so that's like, well, now that's just ridiculous.
The second idea was that you have to have one running back that's 300 pounds.
What the fuck? You have to change the name at that. Look, as a man that's been 300 pounds since about middle school, we don't run. I know a lot of 300 pounders, and none of them run either. We're in a club. We don't fucking run. We're just called waddlebacks. Oh man, waddlebacks would have sounded really fucked up if you had some announcer that had some sort of speech impediment. We got real racial. We didn't see any Hispanic people in the...
Or Jesse the Body Ventura would have been, there's a damn waddleback.
Whoa! We just lost everybody in New Mexico and Arizona.
But, no, those were his two suggestions to make the game different, and he said you could use... It could have been a female wide receiver going against a female cornerback, and then he liked the idea of the fridge. So
of course.
So it's if you really want to alter the rule, because we'll get to the rules here in a little bit, how they altered it, and I've got a fun fact that may or may not be true that's about the rules I'll let you know about.
No one knows. No one ever looked into it.
I did, because I'm obsessive. It's his ideas.
Because I have a disease.
I have a problem. They poked my butthole about it this morning, and
turns out it wasn't the butthole end.
Yeah, well, they should have checked the other.
Should have top of the head.
Top of the head. But his idea of that, if you have a female cornerback against a female wide receiver, and you're always going to be what's going to happen here? And then you have the idea of this 300-pound person getting the ball because of the fridge, but you have him on all downs.
Yeah.
And it just makes the intrigue, and then the idea of finding a 300-pound guy.
Almost anything could happen at any point. That's kind of the concept.
Especially with what happens when that female cornerback
runs into that 300-pound man?
Exactly.
Fucking mixed babies, and it's gonna be beautiful, and it's gonna be the future.
Absolutely. But that was his idea, is to alter it so different and pull it away from the actual game of football. To make, if you want to make this an oddity and something different, he said, those are my two suggestions.
And you know what would have been crazy about that? Those two suggestions would have not caused anyone to get real fucked up concussions and be paralyzed the rest of their life. Like the other goddamn idea where they said, let's get rid of the free catch rule.
Yes.
Holy shit!
Yeah, but all that happened was it just turned into people just not catching the punts.
Well, but the overall concept is kill that man, and then kill that man,
and that's how they also took away the fair, not the fair catch, but the protecting the receiver, they could get the bump and run.
Oh,
and
man.
also through a lot of kicking changes they made. They also got rid of the point after kick. They said it was a guarantee. So basically, what they did is they set it up like a 2-point conversion, but it was only worth 1 point.
So it's like when you hear about these huge lawsuits that 20 or 30 people are doing against the WWE, but you only hear one name that's leading the hunt. It's because the other 29 are fucking XFL players.
Well, in the coin flip situation where they do the golden scramble where you run down and you get the football. Or, that situation. The first injury came off of that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Which was nuts.
Yeah.
See, if I was going to do it, if I was going to be a shitbag and make them chase the ball down, they would have been facing each other and having to go to the middle. Not side by side where you land on each other. Just front to front. So, if you, saw that guy get there, just give up. That shit was fucking cool, though. Fuck them.
Yeah.
If you want to be...
You want the ball?
Yeah.
Go get it.
Go get that goddamn ball. You want the ball? Get the ball!
But that's the thing too, is they were trying to smash mouth that pansies and stuff like that, which Like I said, football.
If that's what not being a pansy is, I'll just keep being a pussy. Like I don't mind. Like I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna hurt myself for no reason.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like other weird rules that I really didn't understand. There were a lot of like rules that were like they implemented that the NFL was going to implement at one time, or something that got pulled out at one point in time, and like some of the rules were very similar to the Canadian Football League rules. Surprise!
And Vince was gonna buy those rules.
Yes, exactly. But I read on a website, and I don't know how credible this is.
I believe it.
Well, it's very interesting to me is that somebody said that one of the officials they had helping write the rule book was Ron Meyer, who that name means nothing to you, but
does not at all.
Those people who know 30 for 30 documentaries and also know about NFL football and college football. He's the former SMU coach who was a part of, a very scandalous SMU scandal where they were, paying for players to play for SMU, like Eric Dickerson and stuff like that. So you had a guy writing the rule book who gave zero fucks about the rule book in college.
So at least he was, an unbiased person.
Yeah, he knows how to bend the rules.
Yeah, I'm not gonna let anything set in my way like morals.
It's like when Geithner was in charge of finances for Obama when he was the guy partly responsible for some of the financial things in the world.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
I like that we're able to bring it back to politics also.
Always. Always.
And low-key throw in our political views.
Exactly. But, like I said, not really for sure, but it was a website I wrote that was dedicated to the XFL, so I don't know if that's 100% true, but God, if it fucking is, I love it.
I hope so.
Also, too, another thing about the XFL is they encourage sports betting.
Really?
Hence why...
They only talk about encouraging fucking.
Yeah, they definitely encourage that with the cheerleaders. But they
everybody fuck everybody.
But to me, it's like that should have been something discussed on here, is how they were open to it. Like they were discussing the spread on air, hence why they had a team in Las Vegas.
Oh.
Is they really want to encourage sports betting on the game as opposed to like ignoring NFL doesn't bring it up at all. And they're like not supposed to talk about like the betting line.
Yeah. Even though it happens.
It happens.
Let's say it does fucking happen because it does happen.
Which that's one of the things that the XFL is like, no, we're truthful. We're gonna promote it as a real product and real things happen. Mm-hmm. Much like the idea of like, hey, the football players are hooking up with the cheerleaders, which I'm sure have happened over the years.
At least once.
At least
I'm sure Joe Namath fucked them all.
Oh, yeah. Every single one.
Oh, man.
And that's part of his, Legends contract for the NFL. They all have to fuck Joe Namath.
Well, the thing is, Joe Namath's here today, so you kind of gotta fuck him. We're not saying you have to, but if you want to get back on the team next year...
I'm just saying, look at that fur jacket.
Yeah, look at him. He's very happy and kissy.
Yeah. It's gonna happen regardless.
Not to say that men in the friend zone should expect sex. Also, as a side note, because we like to get on the good moral topics every once in a while.
Absolutely.
But unless it's Joe Namath, you let Joe Namath in.
That's where we draw the line.
That's right. The only person we can't talk shit about is Joe Namath.
Yeah, we can't. I mean, did you see his legs in that commercial when he was wearing pantyhose?
Look at him.
But another thing that brought up...
Did it get hot in here?
It is very hot in here.
It's very warm.
Very much so.
I'm verklempt.
Another thing it was talking about, pay or play, is the idea that you paid when you win. But but here's some of the stats that I got on the pay or pay. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. The quarterbacks got paid $5,000 per game. Other players got $4,500. Kickers got $3,500.
What?
I love that the kickers got less by a lot.
Well, I mean, they should. They only do one goddamn thing a game.
And then each player got a bonus.
I'm surprised they got that much. I'd have paid them $20, but $2,000 a completed kick.
Mm-hmm. That'd be an interesting thing too. But if you won, you got a bonus of $2,500.
Each person, or
I think each person
split up?
No. Each person got whatever, but that's how it worked out. But if it was a playoff win, it was $7,500.
Oh, Jesus.
And of course, the $1 million game, which was like their Super Bowl, each player got $25,000.
Fucklebees.
So add that up.
And now, did they have like I don't know if they ever spoke about it, but did they have like was it a 54-man roster that the NFL has?
No, they had a 38-man roster.
That's still a shit ton of roster.
Yeah, but like it's only 2 less than the Canadian Football League.
Fuck those guys.
Sorry, guys, you missed out.
Fucked up, Bret Hart, huh?
But let's talk about some of the team names. They were either about like mental illness or crimes.
Or your just regular name.
Yes. But there was one name change that luckily they were smart enough to figure this out beforehand.
You say they, like a lot of people had an okay on this.
Well, I feel like
the main guy was okay with it.
Yeah.
And no one else. Oh, no, sorry. The main guy was okay with it. One guy just happened to fucking catch it.
Okay, well, it was the debacle over, they were having like hitmen, but then the one issue that came up was the Birmingham blast. They felt because of
you mean team? I'm sorry, you said
team.
I thought you meant like individuals' names.
No. They didn't care about that.
Oh, okay.
That was discussed, and yes,
because we haven't got there yet. That needs to be a thing.
Yeah, the teabagger thing. And
never mind. It's got fucking ruined now.
Okay.
Let's go talk about the blast, though. What happened there?
Well, as you know, Birmingham, Alabama.
Mm-hmm. It's a place.
There's been a few racially motivated...
Near where Forrest Gump was born.
Yes, there's been a few racially motivated bombings that have happened there.
Oh.
And a couple of other, domestic terrorist acts have happened involving bombing, especially one that had happened only a few years earlier.
Prior to this moment?
Yes. So they decided that maybe blast, maybe not something that you put
maybe?
next to Birmingham. So they changed their name to the Thunderbolts and shortened it to the Bolts. So, lightning can still strike in Birmingham.
So many times it causes a blast and changes the history.
You said that, sir. I did not. But yes, let's talk about the names. Go right ahead.
Well, we all know He Hate Me.
He Hate Me.
Which, okay, so like they bring up the Mormon kid. Do you have his name down? It was just his regular, the quarterback, who ended up being like one of the best players in the league, according to NBC.
You mean Tommy Maddox?
Was it him?
Yeah.
It was the Mormon kid. The Mormon guy was the one that was the... That was the whole purpose of his thing, because he was like, oh, we can never watch this or we can never watch this, but my family loved football.
No, but he was the fan. He wasn't a player.
Oh, I thought he was the quarterback.
I don't know. It was the XFL. He was a fan. He could have been a quarterback.
No one else was playing worth a fucking shit.
No, he was a fan.
Oh.
Because he was talking about how much of a fan he was.
Well, I thought that's what was so ironic about it. He's a fan of football, and that's why he got to play in the... Never mind. Well, I guess I just...
Was he a player? Maybe I misquoted.
Maybe you're wrong.
Maybe
Why would they just choose that one dude who's like, oh, and here's random XFL fan?
Well, it might not have been that hard to find.
I'll look it up. His name was Fisher.
Okay, please look it up. But no, all the different names and the teabagger and the glazer. Apparently that happened a lot. They would put a lot of documents in front of Vince, and he'd be like, "Yeah, sure looks great."
And then some guy says fucking teabagger.
Yeah, maybe not that, Vince. And really...
Which I don't feel there was enough attention given to the guy whose jersey name was Death Blow.
Yeah, Death Blow was...
That guy was over as fuck for me.
Yeah, when I remember all that... I vividly remember all of this happening. I remember this time in life because I was such a big wrestling fan. And I was kind of excited for the XFL because it was promoted as Smash Mouth. It's going to be killer. It's going to be just, no fair catch. Just going to be balls out, people killing each other.
Yeah. Everyone's going to die.
Yeah, and then when you have somebody guy named Death Blow, oh, yeah.
That guy's going to be your guy, right?
Yeah, and there was another, it wasn't like He Hate Me or there was something other hate something. There was another, name very similar to that. But yeah, I remember, everything about the promotion of XFL and how excited I was about it. And I remember, once they scored that big rating week one, I was like, yeah. This is a serious competitor. So, did you find the name yet?
Maddox is the guy that I'm talking about, but Fisher was a different dude.
Okay.
But Maddox is... Because when you look up quarterback Fisher, Maddox pops up first. So, but yeah. Tommy Maddox talking about he hate me is my favorite part because he's like a child about it. Like, and then he says he hates me, and then he hates me, and they hate me, and then I don't know this lady, but she might hate me too.
Yeah, everybody hates me.
Everybody.
But let's see, where else do we want to go here?
We've got names. We're getting close to the end. We've already got the names.
Well, let's get to the big debut. Like they got the big debut. It happened. They get
54 million views. They hit a 10 on the Nelson.
Yes, and they're very ecstatic because they were thinking they was probably going to do the same numbers of the Pro Bowl. That's what they were expecting, and it ended up doing double.
Yeah.
So they were ecstatic. But the thing is that from what I heard, they were told the game wasn't that great. So next week.
But again, that goes back to my whole thing about how even the documentary itself puts over how fantastic that show was. But then the other side talks about how shitty the football was, or how great the game was and how bad the game was. But they talk about it in the same light.
But let's kind of shine a little bit of light on that because I remember there always being the hype stuff. Everybody was kind of behind to check it out. Mm-hmm. So obviously that's why I think everybody tuned in to watch to begin with. But the second that people saw it, they immediately started shitting on it immediately, and there were still a lot of people that were shitting on it from the get-go.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you.
But haters gonna hate.
But let me explain to you why there was a lot of haters hating. The thing you have to keep in mind, especially SportsCenter. When SportsCenter would cover it, they did it. They did it while they had their eyes rolled. They made shitty jokes about it being awful. They would show awful highlights. They were always really dickish about it. And let me explain to you why that is. Is because you got to keep in mind that ESPN is owned by ABC. And obviously this is NBC's product.
And fuck them.
Exactly. And also, too, Fox, owned by Rupert Murdoch, who has a considerable amount of pull in the press. Obviously, all of his news outlets, media outlets, of course, they're going to talk shit about it.
Because they were the two that actually got the NFL. The one, was it ABC got the AFL, and then Fox.
CBS has always had the AFL, but they've got Monday Night Football.
And then Fox got
the NFC.
NFC.
Yes, I believe that's how it works. I believe that's how it works.
C's, not L's. They're conferences, not leagues.
Exactly.
Except for Canada. Fuck Canada.
Exactly. So that's part of the reason why is because these media and I think because of the fact that NBC owned this sports federation, that's part of the reason why the negative press had been turned up so much. That's why it was as soon as it happened, all of this negative thing comes I guess we'll cover this. This is a joke, and that's how they treat it. And if people had caught a game or even or had thought about giving it a chance, they weren't gonna give it a chance. They were shot
down immediately by
when people are making fun of you for even watching it or it even being in existence.
Yeah.
So that's gonna prime the pump right there, which is something that should have been discussed in this documentary, but probably couldn't because guess what? This is an ESPN 30 for 30.
Yeah. Suck it, bitches.
So you have to bring up that point. I feel like when discussing, because when you look at the attendance also too, a couple of these stadiums, now you talk about capacity, here's some extra research that I did. When you compare the capacity of some of these arenas, the stadium capacity for an XFL game was at 85% for the San Francisco franchise. Now keep in mind, San Francisco 49ers, I think are still pretty good at this point.
Yeah, they're still a squad.
But they're still supporting the XFL in that town. They had 85% capacity at the stadium.
But of what was the comparison to the size of the stadium they played in to the?
It was the same place. It was
they played in the same.
It was Pac Bell Park. It was the Candlestick. It was the same place. And but some of them are a little bit smaller. Like Orlando was 67%. That's still pretty good for Orlando.
Yeah. Because some of these places they were playing in college stadium size.
Yes. Las Vegas, for example, they had 61% capacity. Okay. But Las Vegas, who doesn't have a professional football team.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. But then there were a couple of them that were in the 20s, much like Birmingham. Which Birmingham, fuck you. Yeah. You got a football team. Fucking support it.
But then you would have to assume that Alabama is just straight up football snobs. The only thing they could be snobby about. because it's not like hygiene or fucking like intelligence. It's got to be football and like snobbery.
Okay.
So then they would kind of balk on the fact that XFL is a thing because they're mocking the only thing that makes this state worth a fuck. That and Corey Hollis. So Corey, you owe me like $20.
But also another interesting thing too about the production, and I want to get into the story because I think the story that sticks out the most in this documentary is the announcer story.
Yeah.
Matt Vassar.
Sure, keep going.
No, I'll stop right there, Matt.
Okay.
Matt V.
Oh, Matty V?
Oh, Matty
you
V.
mean Matty V?
Yeah, Matty V.
Matty V. Oh, yeah, Matty V.
The XFL announcer.
Yeah.
And he talked about having like Vince McMahon tell him one thing and Dick Ebersol tell him another.
And they were both fucking hot at him when
Which...
Well, this is making me uncomfortable. That's what you chose?
Yeah, out of anybody that's ever done a live performance and had a boss standing over top of you for it, or had a couple of bosses more specifically, knows this exact situation has been put in this type of situation before. A promoter will tell you one thing, a booker will tell you a different, and then you just kind of do something in the middle and they both hate you.
And then all of a sudden there's a vagina in everyone's face and you've got to figure out how to react to it.
Yeah. So I really felt for Matt in this situation because
I think he's the only person that comes out clean in the end.
Yeah, and like I said, I really feel bad for him in the whole situation. And then, of course, like they put Jim Ross in there, and then of course the power outage from not putting gas in the generator, which is my worst fear as somebody that like is on the road.
And that's an NBC issue. Like NBC didn't do this.
Yes, but that's the thing is that it just goes to show when you do a large production. All it takes is for one bolt to be out of place, and the whole fucking thing comes crashing down. That's why I probably have an ulcer right now. That's why I freak out about things all the time, especially when we're packing up for big stuff like WrestleCon and other big shows and stuff like that. And I can't handle the pressure of being responsible for every little piece of the part. And then I've got somebody riding next to me that forgets his own fucking wallet. And I have to remember everything behind me, so I have nobody going up behind me making sure that we have everything we need for this
the one thing that
show.
you would assume that everyone knows has to be there.
Exactly.
You like you pulled off and realized you only had 4 wheels.
Yeah.
Because it's somebody else's car.
Yeah, and there's some things you just can't fix in the moment or takes time to fix, and you need everything to work properly. So something like this, like not putting gas in the generator, that's a Caleb Connolly mistake.
Are we just going to name all of our buddies on this show?
Yeah.
So John Schuyler's a piece of shit. Which I think is really funny about this particular one, because this is game 2 of the season.
Yeah.
And so like they've made this big deal at this point that old announcer V can't get his shit together, so this fucking blacks out. They have to kick to his game, so now he's the lead announcer again. But what they don't tell you, and what I feel is kind of a travesty about his role in all the XFL, Jerry the King Lawler is his color guy. Mm-hmm. What the fuck?
What's Jerry going to talk about? Talk about how he's going to...
Puppies! And that's why they put old fucking Matty V with Jerry the King Lawler, because when tits came out, Jerry the King Lawler knew how to deal with tits.
Yeah, and guess what happened? Jerry actually left in the middle of the season because of the whole dispute with them firing Stacey Carter, his wife. So then Matty V's left all alone again.
Here we are again. And as we all know, from old promos, Jerry Lawler, the 13-year-old girl.
You said that, I didn't. Just to be reminded. But
Brian Christmas walk around here with a little red wagon. Go on.
That's a deep cut for everybody that pays attention to Memphis promos.
You get 1 free season of this podcast if you can tell me about that promo.
but another thing that we glaze over because they had the different games going on. Another announcer that should be noted. Brian Bosworth was an announcer.
What?
On the UPN affiliate for, I believe, like the 3rd tier game.
Did it glaze over it too? Because I don't even remember him being there.
They didn't mention it whatsoever. And when I found out that he was a commentator on the UPN affiliate for XFL games, I'm like, why was he not discussed?
I feel he would be the bigger draw than anyone besides, was Buckus? was one of the guys that
They didn't talk to Butkus for this thing, but they
talked. Yeah, they did. They talked to him for like a split second, but they talked about how he was part of the first game, and he talks about how the inaugural deal. Mm-hmm. But I figured that fucking Bosworth, he had his own 30 for 30. You would think they would put him in there.
Bosworth probably wanted too much money.
Fucking Bosworth.
I know, right?
You do 130 for 30 and you think of fucking somebody. Mm-hmm. Ice Cube's doing Disney movies.
But let's talk about the cheerleader locker room thing, because I remember when they did this. At this moment in time, when they did this, it was like at the peak of people like shitting on the XFL.
Yeah.
So I feel like this was like a big fuck you to everybody. Like, we're going balls out. And I remember this is the only other time I checked back into the XFL because I was a very horny 19, 18-year-old boy.
You know, and like they all are.
Which I watched the extra online about this locker room thing and had to listen to Jonathan Coachman talk about how they did this in a tasteful, respectful way.
Of course, Jonathan Coachman. Because he still works for ESPN.
Just as tasteful and respectful as the Diva Search was
to
female professional wrestling.
You know, because that worked out.
But when they asked, when the original script came in, the lady, I believe her name was Jay, who was in charge of it, she read it, and she went to Vince and like, did you read the script for this locker room thing?
And most likely he was like, yeah!
Exactly. Yeah,
right.
And she goes, did you think it was sexy?
And he was like, yeah!
Well, he was like, is it not sexy? Because he's not trusting his instincts because of the teabagger incident.
And because he didn't read shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And as far as he knows, there's just a penis drawn on a piece of paper for this scene.
And then she goes, did you think it was funny then? And he goes, you're saying it's not funny? And so they basically had to redo it. And Dick Ebersol basically ripped off a sketch that his wife wrote for Saturday Night Live.
Back in.
To be kind of the basis for the locker room thing where the guy got knocked out. It was like a dreamland of what it looked like in the women's restroom. Was the idea.
You mean they could just recycle the entire plot of Porky's the movie?
I think maybe that's probably what the original would have been.
Okay, just curious.
But then of course I find it funny is like Vince's big concerns, everybody's big concerns was it sexy or funny, and their idea was like, okay, this isn't sexy or funny. Let's just put the girls in sexy lingerie and then put Rodney Dangerfield in it. So it's guaranteed sexy and funny now.
Because you have sexy women and the best man in comedy ever, Rodney Dangerfield.
So all bases covered.
Which honestly, I think Dangerfield was the better part of this women's locker room. Just saying.
Yeah, it was a funny little
There's
bit.
not enough hoods of Whitesnake vehicles for these Tawny Catans to dance on, but at least there's Rodney Dangerfield.
Exactly. And I remember this when they did this, it was like just at the peak of nobody caring about the XFL because people had just gotten browbeat of how bad it was from the ABCs, the Foxes of the world, like this was the peak of it.
And I love that they put over that one man only would be allowed to do this. And the one man is Rodney fucking Dangerfield. Of all the men, I still assumed he was dead at this time in life. God, rest in peace, Rodney Dangerfield.
No kidding.
Even on this podcast, he gets no respect.
No respect.
I think we glazed over the fact... We glazed over a couple things, but nothing's really super important. The fucking blimp.
Yes, I've got a note.
Do we have some blimp stuff? Because that happened way early. I think that happened before the first game.
It happened before the first game.
Because it was Miami versus the Raiders.
Yes, in which you can't fly blimps over football games anymore.
Because of this? Because I believe that.
No, because of 9/11. So airspace over.
You mean 9/11? That was the XFL of football? 9/11 of football?
That's
okay.
not what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead. You tell me.
The most
historian.
The most fantastic thing I found about this blimp is apparently when the blimp went down, it was piloted by a student pilot, and but there was also a professional along. But they're like, yeah, we can make this a training exercise, and that happened. And I read this on the Wikipedia. I don't know exactly what it means, but they said the pilots were forced to evacuate.
You mean by parachute?
I don't fucking know.
Or like scuba gear at this point.
I don't fucking know how you properly evacuate a blimp if there is equipment for you to jump out of a blimp, or you just kind of wait till you're like, I don't know, we're about
close enough, because you're not going fast.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly, or you scaled on a rope and then let go. I don't know what evacuate.
Because I assumed that if you had to scale on that rope, then you could just have enough strength to hold the blimp in place and like, because like when that happened, I was like, well, of all the places to land, like how did you just go here?
Well,
I figured that you go at such a slow descent that you could just at least aim it somewhere non-populated.
From the way I understand that it was written on the Wikipedia.
Like, I'm no blimp expert. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah. Let's make that very clear. I'm not a blimp expert, but the way I read it is they evacuated and they were like, "Oh, good luck, blimp."
Fuck this blimp, I don't work here.
Yeah, it's pretty much it lands where it lands.
And I hope when they jumped out, there was like the Wile E. Coyote noise of.
And cost $2.5 million.
As it should.
So
I don't know how much you would charge for a blimp crash, but that's how much I would pay.
Speaking of crashes, Bob
the
Costas.
XFL, here we are.
Bob Costas. You want to talk about Bob?
Are we there yet? We didn't talk about the Bubba Cam.
Let's talk about Bubba Cam real quick.
Because I think Bob Costas is the go home, right?
It winds up.
It's basically that, and then we're crying, and then there we are.
I think so. I got a couple more things probably before we get there. Okay. So
I think Bob Costas is the go home. So let's backtrack whatever you want to get in.
Let's backtrack. Okay.
Bubba Cam.
Bubba Cam.
Loved it. Bubba Cam being do you remember Bubba Cam?
I remember Bubba Cam.
Bubba Cam, the concept that the guy that I thought was Jesse Bonaventura, a couple of takes. He was the main videographer, I guess you would say, for the XFL. Mm-hmm. And then they came up with the idea that, let's just put a guy in some gear and have him be on the field, and he can film it all there. And that guy wanted more money, and Vince was like, "Oh no, I'm not paying this jabron some money.
You should just be grateful that you work for my company.
I've got Bubba, and Bubba will do it." And Bubba did some of the most landmark backstage brawl videography that there ever was. And then Bubba's like, "Oh, nah, dog, I'm not doing this shit. This is dumb." But they never really said, like, I guess it ended up being guy number one, not Ventura. But he never really talks about his, like, financial triumph that he's like, and then I won. And then they're just like, then Bubba didn't do it. And they left it at that. That guy didn't even come back and be like, and then I made Vince my bitch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they didn't even do that. But, like, I remember one time, and they didn't talk about this. Now, we're on the extras or anything, but I remember this happening. And I might be crazy for remembering this. I may have hallucinated it.
This might not even be real fact.
This might
be alternative fact.
Much like my Ron Meyer discussion. I remember one of, like, the Steadicam people, like the Bubba Cam people, like outrunning a defender.
That probably most likely happened.
During a game, like the offensive player was on a breakaway and the defensive player couldn't catch up, but the guy with the camera outran the defensive player. They were so impressed by him, they signed him to a contract and he became a player.
That is how fucking Cinderella stories happen. That's how Disney movies are made.
See, that's the thing that I'm really kind of upset about with the XFL is you got to keep in mind, God bless WWE.
But trying to get a job? Calm down.
But I'm trying to be fair. I'm trying to be impartial. I'm trying to be a broadcast journalist, much like Bob Costas, who we'll talk about next.
Fuck Bob Costas.
Is that 2001 WWE storyline-wise, not the peak of creativity in the entertainment world. Okay? Like, very, hey, we need something that's really exciting. Let's have a hardcore match. Hey, we need to get the ratings here. Let's have girls in bikinis. Hey, let's have somebody come out and drink. Like, nothing, breaking or pulling at the heartstrings or even kind of real. Just everything's very characterized, very larger than life, which is what pro wrestling is. But here's the thing that they missed out on is the idea, and this is a little bit before reality TV, is you were so into the game and you were so into the over the topness and the violence, but like the idea that these guys weren't good enough to play in NFL football. They were like the top stars in
college,
in college, high school, all those places. And then somebody told them no to their dreams.
Yeah.
You have 38 guys on one side and 38 guys on the other side of the field. And the thing is, if they lose, they're out in a large amount of money. Like,
and a career, because this is just based. This doesn't have the anchored in prestige of the NFL. This hasn't been around for 50 fucking years. This is year one, day one shit. And you're just like, oh, I've got to kill everyone here. So I have a job next season. Because maybe there might be a next season. I don't fucking know. Because
that's the thing is, you have these very unique individuals. And some of them could have been like, you could have one guy who had done prison time. And that's what messed up his whole NFL career. And then the other side of it, you got a guy who's like a prison guard by day. And then you could, like, WWE would have loved that type of matchup.
Yeah.
You know, you had all these unique stories that were just left on the table that you could have told, like, here was this one guy, but he blew out his ACL and right before the combine, and then nobody drafted him, and then he never got a fair shake at the NFL, but now he's in the XFL, and he's going to prove to everybody that he belongs. They never told those stories. They were more worried about getting the camera in the cheerleaders' like crotch or breast, and then we were always like, you know, worried about like what's Jesse Ventura going to say to this coach.
Well, I think the reason you get those moments is because they put so much emphasis in assuming that these guys would tell their own stories, but not put these stories into motion for them. Whereas, like, you could have commentators and ADR guys like, now let's talk about this in post-production highlight reels. We're like, oh, this guy didn't get the fair shake, and this guy. They assume these guys would create their own and write their own reality TV shows at the same time they're making a sport for TV. And they put too much faith in their fucking, obviously, dipshit guys. Because they even say that, like, only one or two dudes, mainly He Hate Me, would put over a character enough or put over his outside persona into the sport itself. So, like, they were just putting too much faith into guys that didn't know what the fuck they were doing anyway.
Because that's the thing, too, is they're getting too much reliance on guys trying to get themselves over. They had a platform, and they figured they would.
And they just wouldn't because they're not shitty people, because they've been working at Bed Bath & Beyond the week before. That one dude was a male dude and didn't know that's what you should be fucking doing.
Well, they're also probably pretty embarrassed about it, but they don't see the potential of it being a story for you to get behind. Because that's what we look for in pro wrestling, is the people to get behind our struggle as a babyface, or hate us because of our easiness to navigate adversity, or whatever reason. But like, these guys are like, oh, I just want to focus on football and focus on that. I just want to do this. But no, like, this could have been like the Ultimate Fighter. You could have done a pregame show about the personalities that you have, but all it takes is for them to sit down and discuss, and then this is a story about this guy who's a running back, and this is why he hate me, and gave him, like, here's a microphone to go as crazy as you want.
And then, well, they have the concept of, like, maybe we should have a couple writers on this end instead of just keeping all of our writers in WWE at the time, which in the end they actually started bringing in, like, try to make this XFL a wrestling show. But if they would have got in on the ground floor of getting emotionally involved in people and, like, bringing people into that way, they had, like, one writer or two writers, and like, oh, fuck, I could just do this. Because clearly these guys are going to do it for themselves.
Yeah,
we might still have an XFL, at least in some fathom past season 1.
But the thing is, like, they were so hot-shotted. Like, Jesse Ventura's feud with the Chicago coach. I remember that happening, and, like, nothing ever panned out with it. When you could have discussed, like, some guy's background, or like Tommy Maddox's background. Obviously, he was good enough to play in the NFL. He led the Steelers to this fucking Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, what was his backstory? Like, that.
Why is he here? Why is the guy with the rings not still there? Tell us that, and here we go.
Well, no, he hadn't won them yet. Is what I'm saying. But the idea is obviously somebody that was obviously good enough down the line to win Super Bowls. Why the fuck is he here? Like, that to me is a more compelling story. But they were so worried about, like,
tits.
Yeah.
Fucking.
You know, and I get that, and that's kind of what WWE was making their money on at the time. But, like, you had a rare opportunity to have, like, an Ultimate Fighter type level reality show with Smash Mouth Football, with giving people the opportunity to chase their dreams, which people always get behind the positivity of it, as opposed to floating towards the more darker, primal needs of human beings. But, of course, that's what the late 90s were about. So, I stand corrected. We can see the forest through the trees. So,
unfortunately, they could not.
Exactly. But speaking of somebody who saw a whole bunch of trees in the forest.
Every goddamn tree there. And he cut it all down.
And he cut it all down.
Made wood.
Bob Costas.
Who I love until, like, you know, I like to think that in real life, Bob and Vince have made their amends.
Oh, no, I think they still hate each other.
See, I think Bob was just, in true WWE form, just playing his heel character to Vince McMahon.
Maybe doing a little bit of tryout. But Bob Costas, he went on Conan, which I believe this was when Conan was on NBC, obviously. And they had on there, and he was talking about the XFL. Mm-hmm. And it was like after week 2, after the ratings had tanked. And Bob talked about the XFL and said it was a combination of mediocre high school football with a tawdry strip club. And then when they commented about the ratings, he made the quote. I'm going to say this exactly. The last one was verbatim, but this one is word for word. I have to put the right spin on this because I'm also on NBC. Apparently, it went through the toilet.
Apparently.
Because the right spin,
toilet
bowl.
Yeah, of course. They got to keep a job.
He probably said it better than what I did, but that was his quote. And, of course, the HBO On the Record interview where Vince is, like, all up in Bob Costas' face.
Yeah.
I am waiting for the day when Donald Trump does this same exact thing to Chris Wallace or Wolf Blitzer or Anderson Cooper in an interview. Like, just get all in his face. Like, I can't wait for the leader of the free world to do an interview and have this type of body language, this threatening body language towards a member of the press.
Yes.
Cannot wait, ladies and gentlemen. So...
And that's how we're going to end that season.
But it's like, Vince is so fed up, but he's got to get through this entire season. He probably wants to pull the plug on it now.
But was still in almost a Vince McMahon, like the facial expressions he was making and the, like, how dare you facial expressions. Like, he looked like he was still in character there to me.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved it. I loved it.
Living the gimmick at this point. And I like the thing where he's like, if he was just bigger. Who wishes for that in a fight?
No! I would have loved to punch Bob Costas then. I don't want Bob Costas to be 6 foot tall and 300 pounds.
No.
I don't want him to be my size. He might hit back.
Any fight that I've ever gotten, I'm like, I wish this guy would be smaller.
Yeah, exactly.
So this could be like fighting my sister on the
wish you were a
trampoline.
4-year-old right now, and I'd knock the fuck out of you if nobody's looking.
Give you a shoot power bomb.
I would just trip you as you ran through the store.
Yeah.
Because your mom's not paying attention.
This is like when I would do run-ins on the trampoline to my sister.
Exactly.
And put him in the sharpshooter. Because I didn't have brothers to play with.
Exactly.
Like,
fucking up my cousin when he was 8 with a sharpshooter, but I wouldn't let it go because he's not smart enough to know what to say to stop doing. Because he's 6. Fuck him.
But the demise of the XFL, they lost $35 million. They only got back 30% of their original $1 million investment. But it was a tough proposition to begin with because they were running during March. Of course, March Madness. Mm-hmm. That's going to dominate the sports ratings world. That's kind of their month. Vince was actually interested in continuing running it on UPN and TNN after NBC backed out. But then UPN was like, hey, you're going to have to cut SmackDown down to 90 minutes. And he's like, no, not doing that.
Not going to do it.
Nope. Getting way more ratings than SmackDown.
Not going to do it.
So decided to do that. But, you know, some people saw success. You know, we had 9 players from the XFL ended up playing in the Super Bowl. 4 of them won a Super Bowl and the XFL championship.
Ooh.
And one guy, Bobby Singh, won a Super Bowl, the XFL championship, and the Grey Cup.
What the fuck?
That guy should buy a lottery ticket tonight.
The day he did all those in one time.
Also, too, Ricky Ortiz, Atlas the Bone. He was an XFL player.
Huh.
Also, he's married to Layla L. Didn't know that.
Which is the real winner.
Yeah, of any winners of the XFL.
Yeah, this guy's still doing it.
Yeah, he did.
She loses half her shit if she leaves him.
Pretty much.
Chokes on her.
Which gets us now to the very end.
Most awkward dinner of all time. To the weirdest person ever eating oysters there ever were. And I don't know what Dick was eating. He just had a bottle of wine, I believe. It was real weird.
Yeah, this closing scene, all kinds of really fucked up shit just went through my mind. Now, granted, I was listening to Alex Jones on the Joe Rogan podcast, where he's talking about the elites of this world, like molesting kids.
You mean two lizard people meeting and having dinner in person?
Yeah, like this is exactly like I want to know what type of animal sacrifices have take place in this wine cellar. Like what? Like it just like two old rich guys
just having old rich money time.
Lamenting over their one failure in life that was epic.
Their one real
bump in the
comparison in life. Like the only time they ever came together to do anything of merit.
No, they did WrestleManias together in Saturday Night's Main Event. Like they had but
the whole point of this deal is this one moment, but they don't ever put over that fact more so than just in a blurb. So all you're left to see is this, unless you did Jake Manning style lookups. You see these dudes do stuff. They made a point
that they were working together, and I think they even worked together on WrestleManias and stuff like that. So, but like it's just two fucking old, super fucking rich guys. Just I don't know. It's just so disturbing.
Trying to make themselves personable when they talk about that one time we fucked up.
Yeah, like trying to make them human by.
You remember that one time we lost $35 million? Man, you ever want to do it again? Yep. What?
Because they can.
Because they can. Because they have that kind of thing.
Because they can. They can make, like, the $100 million. That's nothing. Like, this is before... I think during this time, this was before Vince went public.
Mm-hmm.
So, like... Or maybe this was about the time he went public, so he might have had some disposable income. I'm not even sure on the timeline, but, like, he definitely has $100 million right now. He could start another season of XFL.
Yeah, on his own accord.
And it doesn't matter to him. Just like trying to paint these guys as like they were failures at something. These successful man, and that was the one thing. Like, I love Charlie Ebersol. I think he did a
very good job.
He did a very good job. But him being the son of Dick, like he's got to. It could have gone a little bit harder.
He should have shit on him a lot more.
Because it doesn't accurately paint the picture of how bad people were shitting on the XFL.
And the people that, like, you talk about the handful of people that were very professional, like, succeeded after the XFL. And that's just a percentage of the guys that fucking went back to Bed Bath & Beyond, went back to sorting mail, and had their livelihood taken away from JCPenney and shit like that, you know?
Yeah, but like he in the write up, like Charlie was saying, that I want to show the two successful men, they can be measured by their failures. If you're trying to paint these guys as failures, if you're trying to like there wasn't enough heat put on them, is what I'm trying to say.
I feel that their failures should have far exceeded their success at some point.
Yeah,
because at no point was XFL a bigger failure than the success of the WWE or NBC.
Like this thing, like everybody's talking about, oh, this was such a... No, they fucking swung for the fences.
Yeah.
And they fouled out. They didn't strike out.
Yeah, no. They got rehired on a different team the next year.
Yeah.
They weren't just sent home. They still got to play in the fucking Pineapple League next year.
Yeah, they hit a foul ball, and the guy just happened to reach out into the crowd and pull it in. Yeah. Like,
he had one highlight. Bob Costas had one highlight on fucking ESPN. These guys still played for seasons to come.
Yeah, like... I just...
They Bo Jackson and went and played a different sport for a little bit.
Yeah, they just this was rich guy, like, hobby month, you know what I'm saying? Like, they could have went game hunting, but no, they started a football league.
Yeah, like, you can do this.
You know, God bless you if you're that fucking
Let's
crazy.
buy a vineyard. No, let's play football. Okay, fuck it.
Which, if you're that fucking rich, good on you.
Yeah.
They employed people for a short period of time.
Exactly. Made jobs.
You made jobs, launched careers of guys that, like I said, played in Super Bowls. Nothing but good things. I don't consider this a huge failure.
No, not at all.
You know, I there's some people that may see it as such, but like, as we discussed why people were shooting on us so much, and they was far more motivated, like, from a corporate level, this was not a bad thing. But like, that would have been such an interesting angle to come at it, was the fact that, like, just this corporate motivated why they were shitting on it. Why it wasn't meant to succeed. And they never got into the dysfunction that was probably going on between Dick and Vince about their two different visions. Like, there could have been more digging on that end.
Yeah.
There should have been. I just feel like there should have been. But at the same time, too, I know what it's like to do a 90-minute documentary when it really should be a 2-hour documentary.
Yeah.
And people are grinding you down to this, and you just want people to get an
the
essence,
overall idea,
and get a set. And so I understand that. But looking at it right now, I see a far more interesting story of the fact that Fox didn't want this to succeed. NBC didn't want this to succeed. And it could have succeeded. There are a couple of different routes it could have gone, and it's a different ballgame.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
Oh, bump.
So, any more thoughts about XFL?
Would you suggest this as a watch to someone else?
Yeah, I would suggest all the 30 for 30s. You got to see them all. And anybody who's listening to this that wants to discuss 30 for 30 documentaries at the gimmick table, I will give you breakdown analysis, what I think of
every single one of them.
Why I like them, why I don't like them.
In order.
Why you should see. I haven't sit down and made a list yet. But
I will that's
someday.
next.
That's next. I will, for sure one day. But like I will tell you why you should watch this one instead of this one, and why this one is better. I just hope we don't get another one about Miami. I think we've got like 4 of them right now, so I think that's more than enough.
We've done enough.
We've done enough for
Miami's succeeded enough.
Yeah, the University of Miami. We get it.
Yeah, sit down already.
We're done. Zane, anything you want to get out into the world?
Not really, because we're still not 100% sure about what this episode's going to do yet. So
yeah, we'll have to
we have shows. Check me out on the Twitter at ZaneXCore, Facebook Zane Riley, because I'm not original. That's my real name and wrestling name. And I'm on Instagram at IAW Zane Riley. So just pay attention and keep up.
Yeah. And I, as always, I'm taking corrections or omissions or mistakes or anything that we've messed up or anything you want to tell me about. If you're Ron Meyer and you want to tell me if you did write the rule book, I would love to talk to you, Ron,
Please.
about what Eric Dickerson was like in college and how much it cost for you to buy him in college. Let me know. I most certainly love that information, and you can tweet me at ManScoutManning or email me at jake@sslshow.com. Make sure you log on to howdidthisgetbooked.com for How Did This Get Booked t-shirts, and of course, my merch, my own personal merch as the Man Scout Manning. Please subscribe to iTunes and Google Play, and please write a review. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that when you write a review. I do read them, and it does help us out a lot on the iTunes and Google Play. I appreciate that so much. Also, to subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/ManScoutManning, and follow on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/ManScoutManning. This has been another edition of How Did This Get Booked?
Woo! Fuck Bob Costas!